And we are back with the live stream. How you doing, folks? My name is Daryl Prale. It is good to see you again. It feels like so long, but in fact, it's only been about an hour since I've been last on air. And in between, you've been blessed with a few guest interviewers, so that's fantastic. I hope you enjoyed the variety. I enjoyed the break, but I'm back and I'm excited to get on to our next subject matter expert. Let me introduce you to Jim Burton. Jim, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks. Good to be here.
Jim is with BC Strategies, and BC Strategies is an interesting company. One of the things you guys actually produce is the BC Summit, right?
Correct.
All right, so for the sake of our audience, can you give us a little context around BC Strategies, what you do, and then specifically, of course, the BC Summit?
Sure, absolutely. BC Strategies is an evolution of the website UC Strategies, which has been around for about 12 years, and we provide content to help customers on a buyer's journey. And so we give content, a lot of objective individual information. Probably with a lot of the people that you've actually talked to here are people that are on our team who follow the industry and write about it and give information. So the BC Strategies website, which actually is going live from the UC Strategies website here in the next couple of weeks. So a good place for good content about our industry. And then about 10 years ago, we started a conference called the UC Strategies. Its name changed recently to the BC Summit. It's in Palm Springs at La Quinta Resort, October 3rd through the 5th. It's an invitation-only event where we bring in the major parts of the industry. We bring channel partners, the industry consultants, and of course the vendors, and we have a few high-level end users. It's a great event, and you can go to our website and sign up for it. So.
All right, so that's more about Jim. So check him out at BC Strategies, new website coming shortly from the old UC Strategies, right?
Correct.
And the BC Summit. So in the BC Summit, I'm guessing there's no golf going on whatsoever, right? Just so I'm clear on that.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We've been doing a golf tournament on Friday, and most of them spend the weekend there. So it's not a bad place to spend. It's a beautiful resort. It's a place the Hollywood stars used to go.
Yeah, that's
back.
right. I remember that way back when.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's fabulous.
So, of course, before you and I were born, because we're just young pups.
Well, you know, I was only there for the first time a few years ago.
A few years ago.
I paused on that one.
I did notice a little stumble. We'll let that one go.
Okay.
Now, you co-moderated yesterday's general session on cloud communications. And I can tell you, and I've told the audience on the live stream, that cloud is probably the number one thing I'm hearing on people's hearts and minds as I ask them, you know, what are you here for? What do you want to see? What are you checking out? And it's always cloud. So from your session, what were some of the takeaways that you took?
Well, first of all, I think it's a very interesting thing because I've been doing this session for 10 years, but it's always been on unified communications.
Yes.
And what we did this year, we changed it up because you're right, that the world wants to know what's going on with cloud communications. And one of my big takeaways is the people on the panel, because it used to be just the major unified communications vendors, which quite frankly were mostly evolved from the PBX industry.
That's right.
Microsoft, you know, you have to have that edition. We had on IBM before, but same old crowd. This year, we had 3 of the major cloud providers that are solely cloud: Vonage, RingCentral, and 8x8.
Yep.
And then in addition, we of course had Cisco and Microsoft as usual, and we had 2 of the legacy guys, which I apologize for them up front because they're going to get me on this, but NEC and Mitel.
Yep.
So the thing that was really interesting about it is that they were in violent agreement about how important cloud is and that everything's going to the cloud. And that's an important thing because it really is a sign of where the industry is headed, as opposed to 15 years ago and at this show when it was still called PBX, whatever the year was, or VoiceCon, it was really the next generation is, are we going to have IP PBXs or not? And there were battles going on. So I think that one of the real takeaways is that everyone is in full agreement that we are moving to the cloud and everybody is moving that way. And the other thing that was a takeaway from this, and I had a chance to actually have conversations with each of the panelists beforehand. And again, there was just this common thread of how where user experience is the most important thing and how we're going to get there and how we're going to improve in that. And everybody had maybe a slightly different take of how they delivered it, but the bottom line is that the goal is to make it a cost-effective user experience, enabling them to collaborate and communicate a lot easier than they ever have in the past. So, we could go on for hours about that particular topic and subject, but that was really the big takeaways. I thought it was an extremely good panel. We got a lot of good feedback afterwards, and I think the panelists all became very, very prepared to present what their company's position was in the cloud.
What I find so amazing about that story is that when you have that many vendors, both the veterans of the industry and the new entrants, shall we say, you rarely, if ever, get them all agreeing, right? Because they all have a different point of view, a different perspective, a different bias, for lack of a better word. And yet your point was they all vehemently agree that this is the next way to go, and it's just how can you do it, and it's affordability, and it's everything else. So that's so I guess I would say if you're not doing cloud, then you're the odd man out.
Oh, if you're not doing cloud, if you're not out today, you'll be out eventually, because that's where the market's headed. And we did have a good conversation about hybrid and the transition from maybe what you have today if you're a big organization and how you transfer. And there might have been slight differences of opinion there, because some of the vendors don't really have a hybrid solution. They basically say, we'll take this division and set them up, but they're going to stick on an old version of the product for a while, where you've got people that have been in the business like a Mitel, an NEC, a Cisco, and a Microsoft, who basically have the ability to have you have a hybrid solution as you're transferring from one to the other. But I think the most important takeaway there is that it is a short-term solution. It will evolve to the cloud, but as you're in transition mode, you might have a little bit of cloud, a little bit of CPE, and try to make it all work.
Now, as we talk about different vendors, it's interesting because you alluded to the fact that maybe for a period of time there, it was the same recycled vendors, so we say over and over again, that the veterans of the industry, and it's changing. So I know with Amazon Web Services and Twilio, they're both delivering their first ever Enterprise Connect keynotes this year. So with that as the backdrop, what new players should we watch for in the coming year?
Well, one of the things that's kind of interesting, because I had a conversation with Eric Kraft this summer, and I was saying, Eric, you need to be prepared for the fact that Google is going to step up to the table with a really interesting offering, different than what they have in the past. And oh, by the way, there's another player that might show up, which was Amazon. And fortunately, in what I do, I really get a sense of what's going on in the industry and can look at these things ahead of time. And so we knew some of these things were going to happen. And I think in general terms, we're going to continue to see that. We might see IBM, who is actually exhibiting here, maybe spark a little bit into the marketplace again. They've been in it before. They've got an incredible product portfolio, and they've been here before. But we might see them a little resurgence maybe next year. But I think the thing that we would expect to see next year, and one of the companies that has been mentioned pretty regularly, is somebody like Slack. Where is Slack, and why aren't they here? Now, part of it is, are they going to figure out why this is an important show to be at? Quite frankly,
I was shocked they're not here.
Well, that's one of those things, but I think that we'll see that type of solution happen. But as our industry is going through these really broad changes, we're going to see more collaboration pieces. We're going to see people getting into other types of video and collaboration solutions that we haven't seen today. And so even though we're going to continue with these legacy players, we are going to see some new people on the block. And I think that as the interest in other things, because it used to be a PBX show, as you know, as people are looking at the next stages of where we're headed, we're going to see others. One of the problems I have is that some people that I think that might be here next year, I'm under NDA and I really couldn't tell you anyway.
You can't tell me. But I mean, the fact that I guess alludes to or implies, even more entrants coming to the show speaks to where we're at in this point of the whole evolution of, from where the show was to where it is now and how the technologies have changed. All right, so if we were talking about who are the new players we should watch for in the coming year, then let's segue to a complementary discussion around what trends do you think will shape the industry in the next coming year?
Well, there's multiple trends to watch. Clearly, where technology's at is one of them, and this is where you could say cloud. That'd be an easy one. But one of the trends that I think everybody needs to be paying attention to is the channel. And you're going to have a number of other people that can talk about the trends of where they're saying they're headed, and a lot of things are going on. But the reason I bring up the channel is if you think about historically how you as a big enterprise customer would buy something, you would go to a channel partner, and that channel partner would sell you a chunk of iron, and you'd pay them millions of dollars, and then they'd maintain it over time. Well, in a cloud environment, that's changed dramatically, where all of a sudden they're not selling those big chunks of iron, they're getting a residual renewal. And if you look at the pricing for some of the cloud solutions, the channel really isn't making very much money.
Right.
So they're going through a major transition. And so I'm actually keeping my eye on the channel. What are the vendors doing to help make the channel successful? Because quite frankly, at the end of the day, most every vendor out there is dependent on a channel to deliver their solution. And as the financial models have changed, the models for the channel needs to change, and end customers really need to pay attention to that. You know, is this company going to be around? Which, by the way, a lot of them will. They're just going through a transition period. So channel is really, really important to me. But then if I take it another step further, it's what's going to happen with IoT and security.
Oh, yes.
That is a big, big issue.
Yeah.
And people need to be paying a lot of attention to that, and there's some really good work going on in that space. And then another place that I pay a lot of attention to is SDN. That's going to change a lot of things. And you know, I remember a couple years ago we had a couple SDN sessions here.
Yep.
There's a little bit here now, but that's the kind of thing that as I said, I work with vendors on where their roadmaps are. And so I get them early on before, you know, customers are like, who's even heard about it? How do you spell SDN? And you know, and then they finally figure it out, and then they do it. But that's a really popular area, and it's a place that the service providers are spending a lot of time and effort. And so I think that will become more and more popular, more and more powerful. And I mentioned as part of that security with the IoT thing, that's going to be a big issue because there's security problems all over the place, but there's some really cool work being done by a number of vendors. Tata Communications, by the way, is one of them that's got some really great security for an IoT solution.
Everything you're talking about, IoT, SD-WAN, everything else has been brought up by some of our past interviews today over and over again, and they're as enthusiastic about it as you are. And we've had some amazing conversations. You know, the whole discussion around IoT or Internet of Things is you know, the discussion we had earlier was that, you know, it's not new. It's been around for forever. Airplanes were examples of an Internet of Thing, but you know, with the advent of consumers and, you know, Alexa and Google Home and the smart automation and everything else, it's just really much more forward and visible than it was before. And of course, it's evolving as well, and it's just pervasive. And when you add in artificial intelligence, everything else, it's a dynamic time, and there is a lot of merge going in. So I think you're right. When you talk about there's all these new players coming in, how can there not be when all this is just on a collision course to morph?
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic time. All right. So for our audience, if I were to have you describe who would be a good individual that could use your help, what challenges are they facing or pains are they experiencing that you can help them out with? What would you say?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that enterprise customers have is there's so much information or so many opportunities and so many things going on. And you know, quite candidly, the vendors, they're out promoting their stuff and they're confusing the hell out of people.
Yep.
And so that's one of the reasons that we developed UC strategies, now BC strategies, is to help clear the air on that. So we actually have vendors pay us money to help take what they've written as a really high promotional piece and then turn it into something that is not promotional and is helpful and educational.
More clinical.
And that's the whole purpose of the new website, is to help people on a buyer's journey, because it's confusing, it's complicated. Who do you turn to? Who do you believe? And by the way, you should take many, many stops on a buyer's journey. I mean, No Jitter is a great example of a place you should go there and read the great content that they produce as well. But if I'm looking at where somebody can be helped, that's the place. You know, how do you make an intelligent decision? And don't find yourself buying a product today because everybody says that's the hot thing, and when a bunch of us know, well, that's short term. There's another solution coming that is where you really should be investing your time and your money, and where you should be looking at. So just doing a lot of research.
So if you're in a situation where you're about to make an important technology investment and you're doing the due diligence right now, and you maybe have some questions, you're doing your research and you're checking out the vendors, check out the expo hall, but you're not quite sure and there's a little bit of confusion, shall we say, then Jim Burton and BC Strategies are the people that you should be talking to. As you can tell, Jim's been around the block a few times. No offense, sir, you look wonderful. But he's been here long enough to be able to speak and co-moderate these sessions about the trends and the topics, what's going on. He's the guy with the finger on the pulse. If you see him around the show, stop him, talk to him, ask him his thoughts, just like we did here today. Jim, thank you so much for your time.
Great, thanks. Appreciate
All right, folks, with that, we're out. We'll be back soon, though. We hope you're enjoying the live stream. If not, well, hey, there's other live streams to check. Just go back to nojitter.com or go back online to your app or go to enterpriseconnect.com and you can see all the past ones we've already done. In the meantime, stay tuned for our next session. Bye-bye.